Let's take a look at my predictions then from the start of the season and see if we can make any amendments. So guys, welcome back to the channel. We're in the middle of an international break at the moment, so what I thought we'd do in today's video was cast our mind back to the start of the season when I originally made my championship predictions. And based on what we've seen so far this season, I'll basically be saying if I think I'll be a little bit off on that prediction or if I still think I'm spot on with it. Now we do have quite a bit to talk over in today's video. We've had 2 managerial departures gone on. We've had obviously Gary Monk at Sheffield Wednesday, Tony Pulis has now come in, and also Philip Koku at Derby. So we'll be discussing all of those details throughout the video, but before we do get into anything, if you're not already, make sure to go ahead and subscribe. We're on our way to 30,000 subscribers, so if you could help us out, that would be massively appreciated. Also leave a like on today's video if you do go on to enjoy. If we get 250 likes, that would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's cast our mind back to these predictions at the start of the season. So we'll start out at the bottom of the championship and then work our way upwards. Now, I don't know about you, but I always find it quite interesting to look into the bookmakers' odds throughout the season to basically see who's currently the favourites for relegation. If we take a look, currently the 3 favourites to go down are Wycombe, Derby and Coventry. Now, as of recording, Derby yet to hire a new manager. They're currently in the process of looking for a new manager after the departure of Philip Koku. And I think it's going to be hinging on that decision in terms of who they actually go with, if Derby are going to make something of this season or not. I'm not going to lie, I was surprised that they fell off as much as they have done so far this season. I think in my championship predictions from the start of the season, I mean, we'll see it in a minute, but I had them in top half comfortably. And there was a bit of a worry at the start of the season that there was going to be quite a gap in the table between those clubs in mid-table and the bottom half of the championship, mostly because of that original minus 12 points that Sheffield Wednesday had, which has now been reduced to minus 6, and obviously Wycombe at the start of the season didn't look too competitive, although they've turned the corner in their season now. And so if we do look at my personal predictions from the start of the season, bearing in mind the transfer window hadn't shut when I did make these predictions, the bottom 3 I had was Wycombe, Rotherham and Sheffield Wednesday, and that was with the knowledge of Wednesday having a minus 12 point deduction. We'll start out at the bottom, where probably if I had to make the same prediction again, I probably still would have Wycombe in there. I think over the course of a full season, with the squad depth there, it's going to be tough for them, albeit they have been a real nuisance to the sides they played lately. Now above that I had Rotherham, and I think I'm making a bit of a U-turn on this prediction because as of right now, I don't think Rotherham are going down. They look the most stable out of the 3 clubs that have been promoted up to the Championship from League One. Coventry, we'll touch on them in a minute, but Rotherham do really well at keeping pretty much all the games they've been in so far this season really tight. There's not much in them. For Rotherham this season, I think it's just going to be a question of can they score enough goals sustainably to stay up. But then one of the most interesting sides to look into currently is Sheffield Wednesday, with newly appointed Tony Pulis in charge. Now, when I actually put a poll out for you guys to vote on, was it the correct decision or not to part company with Gary Monk, 56% of you said it was not the right call. But I think that goes against what probably the vast majority of Wednesday fans have been thinking for some time now. For me, more than anything, it was the timing that surprised me. Obviously coming off the back of 2 pretty decent results, a draw against Millwall and a victory against Bournemouth. However, Tony Pulis is now the man in charge, and under Pulis, I think Wednesday's odds for survival just got a lot better. I think everyone at the club sort of recognises the situation they're in. The football, it's not going to be great, but ultimately this season was all about survival. I think that under Pulis they'll probably go ahead and do that. So do let me know in the comments down below who are currently your 3 to go down. I'm quite interested to find out. If we then throw up the next group of teams, there's a couple which I probably would disagree with now. So I had Luton just about finishing above the relegation zone. I think that given what we've seen of them so far this season, it looks like they'll be pushing for a really solid mid-table finish. The same can be said for Huddersfield as well, who we've talked about quite a bit on the channel so far, but I've been really impressed by how fast this new squad has adapted to this new philosophy under the Carlos Corberán. There have been areas of inconsistency, but that was what to be expected really. I didn't think they had the most inspiring of transfer windows. I thought they'd struggle for goals, but this far into the season already, they've been a much more enjoyable side to watch. And the team in 19th at the moment is one who I am a little bit worried for. So we've touched on Rotherham and Wycombe so far. Coventry have been probably the most exciting team that's come up from League One this season, and there are maybe a few similarities that I draw to Charlton from last season, whereby they'd be great going forward at times, but defensively would just leave themselves a little bit too open. So far this season, Coventry have already conceded 23 goals in the 11 matches they've had, so averaging more than 2 goals conceded per 90. If they want to have any hopes of survival this season, that's where they're going to have to improve, because goals haven't really been an issue for them. Currently in the bottom half of the championship, it's only Preston North End who have scored more goals than Coventry have, but with them currently shipping that many goals at the moment, I'd probably be tempted to sort of switch around Rotherham and commentary in that prediction. Then with my predictions for Barnsley and QPR, I'm still fairly happy with where I've got them placed in the table. The one outlier here though is Reading, who are currently obviously sat top of the Championship. However, there was the feeling towards the end, leading up to this international break, that Reading had hit a bit of a brick wall in their season. It was this ridiculous start to the season where they were defying all the sort of stats, but things seem to be levelling out a little bit more for Reading now. And because of the form, the international break probably came at a decent time for Reading, so we're all eagerly anticipating to see which side comes back after the break for Reading. If I had to call it right now, I don't think I'd have them in my top 6 prediction, but I would have them considerably higher than 17th. Then if we get into this next batch of teams, I don't think I'm all too far away from where I originally had them predicted in terms of where they are in the table currently. So I had Birmingham predicted to finish in 15th, which I still think is a fairly reasonable shout. Obviously, they've been a little bit frustrating to watch at times, especially going forward, but under Karanka, it's a team which is steadily building, albeit sometimes they do seem to take one step forward and 2 steps back. Now I have Middlesbrough in 14th, and they've been quite an interesting side so far this season. It's an unbelievable defensive record, considering just 5 goals so far this season. And what I mentioned on my original prediction video, there's a lot of good sort of footballing teams in the Championship at the moment, but one team always seems to sneak into the playoffs who just seems to like grind it out for the season. In my original prediction video, I had Millwall as that team, but at the moment it's looking like maybe a Stoke or a Middlesbrough could feasibly make it into the playoffs just by grinding it out week upon week. You know, if there's anyone in this league that knows the Championship, it's Neil Warnock. It's just going to be a question of can they actually get enough goals to go ahead and make it into the top 6. Blackburn 13th, still a reasonable prediction. They're sat 12th in the table at the moment. Blackburn, I think we all realise now, though, have a lot of potential about this squad. It's all about consistency, because when Blackburn are good, they have the potential to be very good, especially with the amount of goals they've scored so far this season. It's quite a dynamic forward 3 that they play with, and to add into the equation that they still got Bradley Dack to come back from an injury as well. He could really be their catalyst for the second half of this season, but at the moment I'm not too far away on that prediction. And Stoke in 12th is quite a similar story to what we mentioned just then about Middlesbrough. Definitely have the potential to grind out results throughout a season. Definitely the feeling around the club that they finally got the balance right, and it'll be a season filled with much more positives than their previous 2 campaigns have been. And then with Bristol City in 11th, Dean Holland's impressed a lot of people so far. He was the big unknown with this City squad coming into this season, because their transfer business, a lot of people were really impressed with, me especially. Chris Martin seems like an absolutely excellent buy. What's going to hamper them, if anything, will be the injuries which have seemingly started to accumulate for Bristol City. They are currently sat in the top 6, and it's a squad which is good enough to be finishing there. Bristol City fans, do you think top 6 is a real possibility this season? Let me know down below. Then to the sides I had just missing out on the top 6, I had Bournemouth in 10th, and to be honest, come the end of the season, I think that this one I will be quite a way off with, really. I just had the feeling at the start of the season that out of the 3 relegated clubs, Bournemouth may turn out to be the weakest over a full season. However, what we're currently seeing is those 3 clubs have all been pretty strong so far, and I think in terms of depth and real star power, Bournemouth actually kept hold of more players than we'd actually thought. The other big unknown with Bournemouth was manager Jason Tindall as well, but he's adapted well to life in the Championship so far, and it is still a squad which is, you know, stacked up with Premier League quality players, so come the end of the season, you'd be expecting them to make the top 6. But then to a prediction which I could be a million miles away on, I had Derby County in 9th, and they're currently sitting bottom of the Championship. Now, as of recording, the current favourites for the job, we've got the likes of Wayne Rooney, John Terry, I've seen Rafa Benitez has been linked, Paul Cook. There's a lot of names circulating around Derby at the moment, and Derby fans, do let me know in the comments down below, who do you want to see coming in? The biggest issue that Derby have had this season is hitting the back of the net. They've only scored 5 goals. And there have been moments in Derby's season when we've seen sparks from them and, you know, things to suggest they'll go in and improve. But ultimately, 11 games into this season, those moments have been just too few and far between, and that's why Philip Koku's ended up losing his job. Then I have my team North End. We are a little bit off this in real life, and to be honest, I think we probably will end up being a little bit lower down than 8th. The main reason is we just can't seem to find the consistency at the moment. I still think it's a solid group of players that we've got here where we'll be comfortably mid-table. The frustration is that I think we have the ability to go on and kick on, but at this point in time it doesn't look all too likely to happen with the current injuries. We've got a couple of contract issues as well. From what we've seen from North End so far this season, it's looking like it's going to be a bit of a transitional year where we're trying to sort of blood in some new players into the squad. You know, we've seen Ryan Ledson getting a real run of games so far this season. Ben Pearson hasn't featured all too much due to injury. And in 7th place I had Swansea City, where I'm not too far off on this one. In real life, they're currently 6th and have looked pretty good for their money so far this season, actually. Defensively, they've been absolutely fantastic so far this season. It's only Middlesbrough who have conceded less goals than Swansea so far, just 7 conceded in the Championship. And I quite like some of the options that they've got going forward as well. They're not as free-scoring as they perhaps could be, but it's a good tried and tested tested system. Obviously, they went to this 3 at the back towards the end of last season. They carried that on into this year. And if I had to make that top 6 prediction right now, I think I'd have Swansea in it. And so before we take a look at who's in my original top 6 prediction, let's take a look at the current bookmakers odds for who they have as favourites for promotion. So as you can see, it's currently Bournemouth who they're actually backing for the league outright. Coming in after that, we then have Norwich and Brentford, interestingly enough, who aren't currently in the top 6. Then we've got Watford, Stoke, Swansea and Middlesbrough. So it would be interesting to know from you guys, who are you backing for the top 6 at the moment? If we take a look at my predictions, currently none of the sides who I predicted to finish in the playoffs are currently sitting in the top 6. The closest the team is that I predicted to finish there at the moment is currently Millwall, who are a couple of points off, and then Brentford as well, who also found themselves 3 points off the top 6. But in terms of Nottingham Forest and Cardiff, it's been a pretty slow start to the season for each of them. But it does beg the question, will those sides see a real revival in their season for the rest of it, or will they continue to dwindle around mid-table? In terms of Millwall, still fairly happy with that prediction. I think they still will be in and around 6th place. I think the difference in the end could be someone like Troy Parrott, who could make all the difference. With Nottingham Forest, I'm quite a way off on. They're 20th in the table at the moment, although come the end of the season, they obviously made that managerial change from Lamucci to Chris Hughton. Come the end of the season, I expect they'll be closer to the top than they are the bottom. I don't know, would you guys agree with that? With Forest, it's been a struggle for goals so far, but they've got the personnel in there to come good eventually, albeit I wouldn't be backing them for the top 6 anymore. And then to Cardiff, who actually only have 1 more point than Nottingham Forest currently do. Similarly, they've been a fairly frustrating side so far this season in terms of a couple of inconsistencies here and there, but they also have the personnel like Forest to come good, you have that feeling. It's just a question of if Neil Harris can figure out that formula. And then for Brentford, as the last of those sides I predicted to finish in the playoffs, I'm still fairly confident that they will finish in the top 6 come the end of the year. It's been a bit of an adaptation period in terms of some of the new players that have coming in. You know, some have really hit the ground running, others have taken a little bit more time to bed in. They've also had a few injuries as of late. You know, Christian Norgard's been out of action. If I had to call it right now, Brentford would still be in my top 6. But then finishing it off with my top 2, I had Watford and Norwich, which I think the vast majority of people had some sort of combination. Watford and Norwich at the start of the season seemed to be the real favourites for the league, and at the moment they're both just 1 point off top. Norwich had a bit of a sort of stuttering start to the season, but they really seem to be getting into their groove now in terms of creating a lot more chances, scoring more goals, and even with some of the injuries that they've currently got at the moment, they look like they'll be a real handful for anyone this season. They just don't lose many football matches. And then it's quite a similar story with Watford as well, who I'm still fairly confident will be at least top 3 this season. They've also been a little bit up and down in some of their matches so far this season, but that's the general nature of the Championship, to be honest, isn't it? You know, I can't see anyone completely running away with it this season. I think it's going to be quite tight both at the top and bottom of the league. But Vladimir Ivic seems to be heading in the right direction in terms of the best sort of system to get the best out of this ridiculous squad that Watford have got in the Championship. You know, if there's one team in this league that can afford not to play particularly well, but they have the star power to dig them out on multiple occasions, that's Watford at the moment. I'm still happy with that top 2 I predicted though. But as you can see to the side of me, those were my predictions at the start of the season, before a ball had been kicked and also before the transfer window had shut. So overall, I do have the feeling that I will be quite a way off with a couple of them, but on the whole, I'm not too unhappy with those predictions. The Championship's a long old season, and you know, in the next sort of 11 games that we have, my opinions could be completely changed for every side. It's just that sort of league, and this season it does seem like it's going to be very competitive both at the top and bottom. So do leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Where do you think your side's going to finish and who's going to be in the top 6 and bottom 3? But other than that, that will now wrap it up for today's video, guys. So thanks for watching. If you did go on to enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, and please do stick around and subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.